Dr. Daniel Amen starts the conversation by dispelling common misconceptions about marijuana. Citing his own extensive research involving thousands of marijuana users, he reveals a consistent finding. Cannabis significantly lowers blood flow and brain activity in essential neurological regions. Using advanced imaging techniques like single photon emission computed tomography, which measure both blood flow and mitochondrial function, Dr. Amen found that nearly every area of the brain showed reduced activity among marijuana users. This decrease isn't superficial, it's closely tied to compromised mitochondrial function, the energy powerhouses of brain cells. Low mitochondrial activity means the brain cells receive less energy, which manifests as fatigue, low motivation, heightened anxiety, depression, and in some vulnerable individuals, a marked increase in psychosis risk. Further studies from independent groups have supported these findings, showing that the brain areas responsible for learning and memory are particularly affected in young marijuana users. These revelations challenge the popular narrative that marijuana is a harmless, natural medicine. Dr. Amen emphasizes that while cannabis does activate cannabinoid receptors in the brain, producing a sense of reward and euphoria, in certain genetically predisposed people, it disrupts the delicate dopamine system and can precipitate psychosis, including schizophrenia, a devastating mental disorder. This biological impact counters the lauded medicinal image often portrayed in society. Dr. Amen paints a troubling picture of how marijuana legalization and marketing have outpaced scientific understanding. He warns that aggressive marketing, spending billions annually, has positioned marijuana similarly to how pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma with opioids misled the public about safety. This has led to a public health crisis, particularly among youth whose still developing brains are especially susceptible. Teenagers increasingly believe marijuana is innocuous, which correlates to rising mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and psychosis. Adding complexity are societal lies around various substances and behaviors, from video games to alcohol to opioids. The contradiction is glaring. Alcohol industries promote drinking despite its known harms, yet marijuana faces a sanitized reputation in some circles. This distorted messaging, Dr. Amen argues, contributes to a generation overwhelmed by mental health struggles. Alarmingly, clinical encounters with teens often reveal scans of toxic brains prone to damage from drug use, environmental toxins like mold, or infections such as Lyme disease. One striking aspect of Dr. Amen's approach is the use of brain scans in psychiatric evaluation. He explains that brain imaging can reveal whether a young person's brain shows signs of toxicity or abnormality consistent with drug exposure or other damaging factors. These objective neuroimaging findings often contradict patients' verbal denials and help open honest dialogues about hidden substance use or environmental threats affecting the brain. In young people showing new-onset attention deficits or behavioral changes, he insists it's critical to understand that ADHD is usually lifelong. Sudden symptoms often indicate brain injury, toxic exposure, or drug effects. His use of brain scans serves as a kind of lie detector, helping to unearth the true causes of these changes rather than simply masking symptoms with stimulants. This approach alters treatment pathways and offers hope for rehabilitation rather than mere symptom management. Dr. Amen explains that cannabis and alcohol target the cerebellum, often called the little brain, which, despite its small size relative to the whole brain, contains half of all neurons. Once thought to mainly govern physical coordination, the cerebellum is now understood to also regulate cognitive processing speed and thought coordination. Marijuana's dampening of cerebellar activity slows brain functioning, explaining the classic stoner profile: slowed thought, impaired coordination, and diminished motivation. This effect extends into real-world consequences like unsafe driving while intoxicated. The cerebellar suppression induced by marijuana is thus not merely an abstract biochemical detail, but a direct contributor to impaired judgment and performance observed in everyday life. While acknowledging that marijuana can have therapeutic effects in very narrow medical contexts, such as helping glaucoma patients or stimulating appetite in terminal illness, Dr. Amen cautions that these benefits are limited and come with significant risks if used chronically or broadly. He highlights the role of genetics in mediating marijuana's impact, pointing to specific genes that increase psychosis risk manifold in heavy users. This genetic vulnerability means that marijuana is not safe or harmless for everyone, and the risks are especially substantial for adolescents who start early. The 2 to 7-fold increased risk of psychosis underscores a crucial public health concern that is often underacknowledged amid legalization trends. Expanding the discussion beyond marijuana, Dr. Amen delves into other common brain health threats. Excess weight, he reveals, causes measurable brain shrinkage and premature aging, with overweight and obese individuals showing 4 to 8% less brain volume and brains appearing 8 to 16 years older on imaging studies. The resulting inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and vascular changes are potent contributors to cognitive decline and increased cancer risk. Alcohol is similarly toxic to brain structures like the cerebellum and frontal lobes, which govern human thought and impulse control. Furthermore, environmental toxins, such as phthalates and parabens found in personal care products and sunscreens, can alter genetic regulation across generations, increasing risks for conditions like autism. The ubiquity of these environmental insults highlights a need for broader awareness about factors beyond substances that can impair brain function. Dr. Amen introduces the concept of epigenetics, emphasizing how environmental exposures affect gene expression not only in individuals but can be passed down through generations. Trauma, toxins, and nutritional deficiencies can activate or silence gene switches, imprinting subsequent generations with vulnerabilities to anxiety, depression, and other disorders. For example, the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors and war veterans show elevated rates of mental illness shaped by inherited epigenetic changes. This modern understanding offers deeper insight into how societal and family histories influence mental health, underscoring the importance of early and comprehensive brain health interventions that go beyond treating symptoms. A significant portion of the conversation focuses on practical strategies to enhance and preserve brain health, encapsulated in Dr. Amen's Bright Minds framework. This approach prioritizes maintaining blood flow through exercise, avoiding toxins, managing inflammation with diet and supplements like omega-3 fatty acids and curcumin, and preserving mental health through therapy and cognitive tools. He also highlights the importance of genetic awareness, managing head trauma, improving sleep, controlling diabetes, and bolstering immunity. This holistic program aims to stave off dementia and depression alike by addressing modifiable risk factors early to keep the brain youthful and functional. Dr. Amen discusses addiction not simply as a behavioral issue, but a brain-based illness involving disruption in the frontal lobes that control impulse regulation. He underscores the challenge of breaking habitual substance use, noting that marijuana addiction, while easier to quit than some drugs, still entails complex brain recovery. Relapse often follows replacing one addictive behavior with another, such as substituting marijuana with excessive sugar intake, which also triggers dopamine pathways. Brain scans showing damage can motivate recovery, as was the case with NBA player Julius Randle. Integrating brain health practices into addiction treatment can enhance success rates, advocating for a shift in rehabilitation from punishment to scientifically informed care. Central to Dr. Amen's mission is fostering a cultural and individual revolution in brain health consciousness. He aims to get people to routinely ask, is this good for my brain or bad for it? This self-awareness would encourage lifestyle choices favoring brain longevity and mental well-being. He emphasizes that the brain controls everything, our relationships, work, creativity, and joy, and must be treated as our most precious asset. He calls out the tragic failures of institutions to prioritize brain health and the consequences of ignoring neurological integrity in favor of short-term gains. His vision includes integrating brain science into education, addiction treatment, and public health to empower individuals to reclaim control of their mental lives. Dr. Amen vividly critiques the political and economic forces behind marijuana legalization, likening the cannabis industry to Big Pharma's opioid racket in terms of misinformation and profit-driven public harm. He reveals how marijuana is a major revenue source for states like California, preventing honest acknowledgement of its risks. The resistance to roll back legalization or inform the public honestly stems from financial and political pressures rather than science. This dynamic impedes public health interventions just when alarming studies demonstrate worsening mental health trends linked to marijuana. Dr. Amen's candid reflections expose a critical disconnect between science, policy, and societal well-being. Finally, the podcast explores the imperative to understand and manage mental processes, specifically the automatic negative thoughts that sabotage mood and behavior. Dr. Amen underscores that much psychological suffering arises from unexamined, distorted thoughts rather than factual reality. He promotes cognitive strategies such as writing down and challenging these thoughts, creating psychological distance by naming the voice in your head and reframing negative beliefs. This neuroscience-based mental hygiene empowers people to disrupt damaging thought patterns, reduce anxiety and depression, and improve overall brain health. It also integrates epigenetic insights and embraces the mind-brain connection as critical in combating mental illness.